Hi, everyone. Welcome to Hanging Out with Mira. Hanging Out with Mad Mimi. I'm Mira.
And I'm Becca, and I'm so glad you guys could come hang out with us today. We are joined today by our very own Emma Wilhelm. Emma, welcome. Would you tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe?
Sure. Thanks for having me today. I do a lot of the content marketing for Mad Mimi. I run our blog, and I also do a lot of data analysis around our marketing efforts. So I get to do sort of the math side of the marketing world and the writerly side of the marketing world, and I love both equally. So I'm excited to be here today, and I have a friend along. Some of you may know her. My friend Mimi. And it really inspires me when I'm looking for new ideas for content marketing. So I thought she would really contribute to the conversation today.
She's my
favorite. She's not too distracting.
Well, thank you, Emma and Mimi, for being with us today. I'm so excited you both could join us. Remember, folks who are watching, if you hit that Q&A button that's on your screen, you can send us questions and we'll have Emma answer them, or if you have a question for any of us, we all can answer it. So you can join the conversation if you just click that button. And you can ask Mimi questions today, too.
Here,
oh boy. With us, which is really exciting. So today we're going to be talking about content marketing and what that is, what it means, how you can do it, and we'll just sort of discuss different topics that that are related there. And so what I'd like, Emma, if you could chime in first with just sort of basics, like in your opinion, what is content marketing?
Sure. When I think content marketing, I think it's both creating and or sharing useful content, and that content could be anything from written word to videos to presentations. Sharing and creating that kind of content with the goal of increasing brand awareness, increasing loyalty perhaps, and ultimately increasing sales.
So why is content marketing specifically, I mean, if it is, I'm thinking that it probably is more valuable than just sort of an ad somewhere that talks about your product. So why would something like content marketing be a better tool for folks to use to drive those sales?
I think because traditional advertising and marketing is more of a one-way street. You're targeting a message to an audience, and with content marketing, it's more engaging and conversational, and you're actually inviting people to respond to you in many cases, and you're engaging people on social media around your content, and so I think it's just more personal.
Nice.
Yeah. I think that's sort of a direction that we're going to just in general in the world, is that there's sort of this two-way conversation now between customers and businesses as opposed to just the one direction.
And what do you think? I know there's content marketing sort of can go in two directions, from sort of creating unique content or repurposing sort of already created content. So do you think that it should be an even mixture of those things, like writing your own blog posts and creating your own stuff, and then also sharing other things, or is one better than the other, maybe?
I think it depends on what you love to do. Like, I love creating content, but not everybody does. So I think you have to use your talents, and you can repurpose other people's content and become a curator and become known as somebody who knows a lot about what's going on in the field, or you can create your own. And you can even repurpose your own content that you created a long time ago. And maybe something new is coming up in the news, and there's a new angle that you can put on old content. You can repurpose it. You can even just repost old content with fresh hashtags that are more relevant today. Just try to make your old content more timely, I guess.
Totally. Nice.
That's something interesting I hadn't thought about before, is that it's actually reusing your own content that had been created before. I mean, do you think that is that still as valuable as creating new? or is it something that sort of should be a back burner or like a fallback?
Well, I think you can, like we've done a little bit of this at Mimi. In fact, Mary, you've been helping with it some, but even just revisiting your strategy in terms of getting your content read, like going back through old blog posts and re-tagging them for search engines or re-optimizing. Maybe if you've been checking Google Trends, you notice that a new search term is actually taking off and becoming a lot more popular. And maybe back when you wrote the blog post, that wasn't a popular search term, but you could go back in and change your keywords in your blog posts and things like that. And also another way you could repurpose your content is take a blog post that was super popular on your blog and maybe kind of freshen it up in a few ways and then pitch it to someone else as a guest post to put on their blog.
Totally. And in terms of like social media and content marketing, I find that a lot of times our old blog posts come in really handy even, years later. And I find that sometimes we'll have a lot of customers sort of talking about one theme sort of as if for no reason, but then it's a great time to be like, oh, by the way, here's this old blog post we had that's completely relevant and helpful in this case, So there's sort of always, if you've been doing it right, there's always a way to sort of tie it back in with what's happening now, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's also a good way to increase your SEO as well. Is if you repurpose that, if you bring something back, bring it up to people's attention again, and you get more traffic, then that looks really good to web crawlers and Google and the man who's managing those search engines and all that. But if you can get traffic on older stuff, that it actually is really, really great for you in terms of that. But you had mentioned looking through trends, looking at search terms in Google Trends. Is that something that you usually do when you're thinking about what type of content to create or to repurpose?
Yeah, I definitely do that when I'm planning content to create. Or even if I have an idea, like I know I want to write a blog post about local SEO, say
Which you did.
I did do that, yeah. And I go into Google Trends and see how are people searching for that topic. So I make sure that I use those words when I'm creating my post. So I don't have to go back and change everything up later. I'm kind of writing the post with those search terms in mind. The other thing you can do is look at competitors' blogs and see which of their blog posts have gotten a ton of comments and tweets and write something really similar.
Cool.
Okay, great. Now you had also mentioned guest blogging and how you can sort of repurpose old content, pitch it to somebody as a guest blog. But and I know that on our blog, on the Mad Mimi blog, we have a bunch of guest bloggers. So can you talk a little bit about how you've arranged that and what your strategy was with that?
Sure. I actually recruited our writers. I looked around for people who I thought had great blogs and wrote great email newsletters themselves. So that all of our writers are small business owners. Most of them are, I guess I call them solopreneurs. Mm-hmm. So they're coaches or they're marketing consultants, and I sought them out because they are our target audience, and I wanted them to create content kind of for themselves. Like, what kind of content would you like to read? Come write it for Mad Mimi. So we have a regular set of guest bloggers who write on a variety of topics, not just email marketing, and I think that's really important, not to write about the same thing over and over again. Yes. They write on all different things that are relevant to small business owners, everything from marketing strategy to like work-life balance or how to find inspiration, how to figure out, what makes you unique as a business owner and how to promote your brand. Mm-hmm. So that's been my strategy. I think it gives our blog a little more humanity. Definitely. It's not just those of us who love Mimi and email saying the same thing over and over again. It's a little more fun for me, and I work with the writers closely and edit their work, and it's a great way to keep fresh content coming in without me being the sole source of it.
Totally. I do like that that's sort of, I think, where marketing is going these days, and I find it to be really great that it's less about just advertising at people and more about really providing useful content, things that people can take away and use for themselves. It's making yourself more of a value than just that one service you provide. You're also an expert about things, and you sort of have a hand in all of the things that are useful to your readers or customers or whoever it is that you're marketing to. It's a really nice sort of like wholesome feeling of where things are going, that people are more conscious of what they're providing to people, and it's less about advertising and more about a give and take. It's nice. I like it.
Yeah, I think as well, like you said, we're not writing blogs about email marketing all the time. We're trying to find out what are those conversations that people are actually having out there, and what are those important things that people are talking about in order to get involved in that conversation. Of course, yes, at the end of the day, it's all to drive sales, but you're creating content and you're creating something to put out there, and so you want it to be something that's relevant, really, and not just branded messaging. So,
I was going to ask, I feel like there are, if you look at certain different, services or blogs or companies, there's always like a content curator or a chief content manager, or there's like a specific role. What do you think about that as its own particular role? Like, should it be wrapped up in something else? Is it totally okay to have it as its own thing?
Yeah, I don't know. I think a few of us do that at Mimi. Obviously, we're a small business. We don't have one person who gets to do something that specific.
Yeah.
We have a team of people, including me and you, who do that, I think. I think the role of someone like that is really to tap into who that target audience is, and I think the important part is to figure out not only who the target audience is, but who they aspire to be. And that's something I think about a lot with Mimi's audience. I know most of our audience is small business owners. A lot of them are solopreneurs. Some of them have employees, but who do they aspire to be? What kind of business do they want to run? What kind of life balance do they want? What kind of connection do they want with their customers? And I think about that a lot. So I think as a chief content curator or creator, you really have, your job is to know that, to figure that out and figure out what kind of content is really going to speak to those people, on a level where it's going to make them stop scrolling through what they're scrolling through on Facebook and click on your awesome content when they have a lot of other things they could be clicking on.
I think that also comes back to the curating versus creating, because when you want to find content and share content that you think is going to be relevant and useful to who your customers want to be or who you want to be as a business, then there's a lot of stuff already out there, and you can tie that all into that messaging and that sort of story of who you are.
Totally.
So oh, sorry.
I'm just agreeing.
Thumbs up. Let's say that somebody is just starting out with this. They don't consider themselves to have a content marketing strategy yet, but they're interested and they want to do that. Are there any sort of concrete tactics that you can recommend, or tips, or any kind of strategy or advice that you have for them?
Absolutely. I would say the first thing to do is to think about what your main goals are. Is it to build your email list? Is it to increase sales? Is it to increase engagement with current customers so that they remain loyal and come back and buy more from you? I think you have to think about that, put it in writing, and then also to kind of assess what media is best for you and your company. And I think that depends a lot on your individual talent or the talent of your group and your budget, because content can be really expensive or it can be free. It just depends on what you have to work with. So thinking about, are we going to focus on the written word in the form of blog posts, or are we going to do something even more ambitious and we're going to publish an ebook?
Make a doll.
Make a doll who tours the world for great photo ops. Are we going to do something really data-driven, and visual, things like infographics or presentations with lots of cool charts? Some of that depends on the industry you're in and what your audience is interested in reading about. Video is awesome content, but it can be pretty expensive, although I know some really great solopreneurs who just do almost a video like this hangout where it's just them sitting in a room and it's kind of like a blog post, only it's a video. Yeah. So they've outlined kind of the content of a blog post on a very specific topic, and they're going to teach you all about how to do this for your business, and they just record it in their house and post it and promote it on social, and that works really well for a lot of people.
And the tools are all out there to do that so easily.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So once you've kind of set your goals and thought about what media you want to use, I think the huge part is to think about that usefulness question. How can you be useful to your target audience based on what I said before about what these people aspire to, who they aspire to be, and how you or your brand can help them get there. Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of the little connection for me. And then after you've done all this planning, I think the number one thing is to have a really hardcore schedule and to actually stick to it, because content can really fall through the cracks if it's not a priority. And I think you need self-inflicted deadlines, and you need to stick to them. And for example, I have found that if you are an occasional blogger, it becomes very, very, very occasional. However, if you always post twice a week, then you always post twice a week. So I think setting some pretty tough deadlines for yourself will help a lot. And then kind of the last step is to just promote your content like crazy. If you put it out there but don't tell anyone about it,
no one's going to know.
Yeah. So those are my big picture tips, I think, for getting started. Oh, those are my big picture tips for getting started.
Gotcha. Okay. In terms of littler picture, you mentioned really pushing it and getting, telling the story like crazy out there. How do people do that? Let's just pretend that someone, is really just getting started and has no clue. What do they do after they have this great plan and this schedule and they've stuck to it? Now what?
Sure. Well, the easiest way is definitely to use email marketing. We really have changed how we do things at Mimi recently, and it seems crazy to me that we didn't do this before, given that we're an email marketing company, but we weren't necessarily sharing all of our content in our email newsletters, and we recently started doing that, and it's just kind of made the whole system work better. So you're giving people a reason to click through to your website, and you're landing right in their inbox and telling them why this content's going to be valuable for them today, and hopefully a lot of them click through. So I'd say email and then social, and I'm lucky to work with Becca, who really promotes most of Mad Mimi's content on various social channels on a consistent basis.
Social media is very easy, and it's mostly free, and it's a very, very valuable tool. It's the best bang you get for your buck, I think, especially when there's no buck involved.
Right.
No, it's great though, and I do like that. Like all of the points we've made about content marketing in general can be made about email marketing too. There's providing usefulness and giving people a reason to pay attention to what you're saying. Not just your product, but how you can contribute altogether to what they're doing. It's it's very easy to do that in your email itself, and then you can also provide links to your other content. So it's nice how it all ties together.
Right, it's sort of a good aggregator and sharer at the same time.
Totally.
Get it all together. I'm not seeing any questions so far. I mean, well, as of right now. But is there anything else that you'd like to share with us, Emma? Or Becca, of course.
You were asking me beforehand if I had any good examples, and I thought about that a little, and I came up with sort of a big company example and a really small company example that I can share. So I'll start with a small company, and it's actually a solopreneur who I heard about through word of mouth. So this is kind of funny. It may be a little embarrassing to admit that this woman is a marriage counselor, and I have been kind of into the whole coaching scene. I've had some personal coaching before, and this personal coach that I know recommends this marriage counselor's newsletter, and she said, I love reading this newsletter. So I guess here's an example where email marketing can actually be content marketing. So this marriage counselor also does workshops, and she holds lots of classes for couples and for individuals. And she writes a simple newsletter, and the articles, it reads like women's magazine articles. And I actually cannot wait to read this woman's newsletter. And I don't know if I'll ever need marriage counseling, but if I do, I'm going to her.
Nice.
Right.
And I mean, I've recommended this newsletter to people because if you want to keep your relationship fresh, read this woman's newsletter. Anyway, so I think she is doing an amazing job, and I don't know how big her list is, but she maybe spends an hour every couple weeks writing this newsletter, and now I am talking about it on a Google Hangout.
Right.
So she's doing something right.
And it's just an email, right? I mean, she just puts together these articles and then sends them out in an email.
Yeah, it's just an email, and it reads like an article, and then at the end it's links to her workshops, or you want to work with me, and her phone number, and that's it. So I'd say that's like a basic bare bones way that you could do content marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, she's telling stories and giving examples from clients and from her own marriage, and it's just very human and very fun and down to earth. So
Awesome.
I like that. And then for a big company example, this is very much in the news right now, and it's almost too good of an example, but I'm sure you guys have seen the Always Like a Girl video. Have you seen it?
Yes, I've heard. I haven't seen it, but I've heard about it.
Okay. Well, Always, feminine hygiene products company, has got everybody talking about their brand by making this video showing adult women talking about what it means to do something like a girl, and every woman who watches this video starts to tear up, and every mother with a daughter is thinking, I don't want my daughter to turn out like that. Anyway, they're basically starting this whole conversation about women's issues and women's self-esteem, and it's a valuable, meaningful conversation that people are sharing all over Facebook.
Yeah.
And the sort of side result is that everyone's using their hashtag and talking about their brand.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's pretty amazing. And I'm sure now that's a high-end example where they spent a lot of money to shoot this video, and they hired a famous documentary filmmaker to do it. But you could do the same thing, interviewing people on the street. I don't know. I think you have to use your creativity.
Nice.
Well, those are great examples. Thank you. We have a question here. It just popped up from George Anderson, and he's asking if inbound marketing is the same as content marketing. Do you have any thoughts on that? Thinking. You could ask Mimi.
Mimi thinks they're related. I think the whole purpose of content marketing in the end is to get more people to come to your website so that you can hopefully show them what kind of awesome products and services you have to offer. And so I think content marketing is really a driver of inbound marketing, and a more creative one than perhaps pay-per-click and other ways to drive people to your website.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it sounds like a bit more of a culture builder instead of just, just getting people to your site. As opposed to that, there's also a whole building culture around your service or your product in the first place, which eventually you want people to click through and go to your site. But I feel like building a community around what you can do will have that side effect anyway, so I feel like making yourself more valuable to everybody will eventually lead them to, like you were saying with the marriage counselor, like you don't need a marriage counselor right now, but you're still part of that community where you're reading and you're engaging. And you know that one day if you do need one, you will click through. So I feel like content marketing is probably a bit more about community and about, actually being useful. And, inbound marketing just sounds more direct from what I can tell. I could be wrong, though.
Right. I like that you had mentioned community building, Becca, because I think that back again to that conversation that your customers are having with you and with each other, that is a community. And so if you can even, as a company or as a business or a solopreneur, or whatever you are, create a space for that conversation to happen, or just create, the community around that conversation, then, your altruism points go way up too.
Definitely. All right, so I think that might be just about it for today. Oh, hi, Mimi. So if anybody has any questions, of course, you can leave a comment on this video afterwards. It'll be up on YouTube, so you can rewatch it. And feel free to email us at support@madmimi.com if you have any other questions. And we'll be here every Wednesday at 4 for another Hangout. Emma, thank you so much. This was great. You're wonderful. This was a great hangout, and thank you for bringing Mimi. Hi, Mimi.
Thank you for having me, pulling me away from my blog posts and spreadsheets.
Get back to blogging.
Back to content.
All right, everybody, have a good day. Thank you so much.
Bye.